boasted against you. The enemy is the so-called Jew. He now has your land and has your real customs.
I'm so go ahead.
Which they're not even keeping correctly. All right? Which they're not even keeping it correctly.
Infamy means famous in a negative way.
Right.
So Jake is famous, but in a negative light.
Yeah.
Byword.
Yeah, you so-called Negroes, you're not famous for being wise and you're famous for being a buffoon. You're famous for being a clown.
You're famous for being drug dealers. You're famous for being black on black crime.
Yeah,
you're famous for robbing liquor stores. You know.
Yeah.
And not all of us do that, but that's what the so-called white man in the other nations. Well, not just the white man, the other nations look at you that way.
Yeah.
Stereotype. You know, as a nigga, watch that thing.
So you're an infamy of the people. You're an infamy of the people, just like the prophecy says. Now, who does that fit? That fits you so-called Negroes all the way down to you so-called Mexicans. Yeah, you so-called Mexicans, you got a stigma too. They call you Bina. You so-called Puerto Rican, you got a stigma. Wetbacks. You so-called Puerto Ricans, you got a stigma too. You so-called West Indians, you got a stigma. All the tribes got a stigma on them. All right?
Revelation 2 and 9. I know thy works and tribulation and poverty, but thou art rich. And I know the blasphemy.
The reason he's talking about us Israelites, the reason why we're rich is because we have this knowledge. We have this truth. Romans 11:33. So how unsearchable are the Most High's judgments and his ways past finding out. That's like riches. Real riches. Okay? Go ahead.
And I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews and are not.
Yeah, really that scripture is talking about wicked as Israelites back then who claimed that they were keeping the word.
But now it applies to
these gutter rats. Because you had a lot of Jews back then that claimed they were Jews, right? Back at the time it was written, but they weren't keeping the law, statutes, and commandments the correct way. But now we use that because the scriptures are manifold. They're manifold in understanding. We use that to identify the so-called Jews because they fit that. They're calling themselves Jews, but they're not the Jews, right? They're lying, and even their own books bring out how they lie. You got the Encyclopedia Judaica 1925 edition. I forgot what page it is. It says modern Jewry is Edom. So how can you be the Jews and be Edom at the same time? Edom is one nationality, being a Jew is another nationality. You can't be two nationalities at the same time. So your lie is being filtered out.
You know it's ironic, right? I got to speak on the FBI and the different federal agencies raiding the ICGJC school. And what I noticed was that the only media out there was the so-called Black News 102, and there was no other media out there because even though they seasoned one that school, they didn't want the regular media to come out there because it would bring towards people's heads. Because it's all publicity is good publicity, including bad publicity. So they made it known. No, we can't put that on the news. Because people will start asking questions about who are these black. See, we're being blacklisted right now. We're being blocked from the media. And there's Hebrew Israelite Israelite groups all over the place. Not to mention GMS. You got IS, the IS, so-called ISUPK, the so-called IUIC, the AOC. All right, they're the GOC. They're all over the place, man. And even though we got differences in our slightly differences in our doctrines, the message is still you are Israelites, man. You are Israelites.
That's the main message.
So they said we can't have that. We can't have that on the media. We can't have that on the mainstream media. We're on what's called the alternative media, which is your YouTube and your other web pages, which a lot of people are going to the web now, man. A lot of people are giving up cable to get these streams, man. A lot of people are cutting their cable, man, because all they street, Wi-Fi, and a screen. And you can watch Netflix, you can watch YouTube, you know?
Yeah, YouTube alone is putting television out of business, man. Why do you think commercials are moving to YouTube?
Man, you can watch anything on YouTube. Let's say you wanted to watch the fight with Joe Louis against Max Mellon 2. Put that shit in YouTube, you can watch the whole goddamn fight.
There it is. You can't do that on television. You got to watch what they program. That's why it's called television programming. Because they program you. They program you on what they want you to watch. So you stay stupid. You don't ask too many questions, and if any.
Right. And that goes to show you. That goes to show you, man, that people want to see what they want to see, man.
Right.
You know?
That's why it's called television programming. So you need programming. Right?
Revelation 11:11. And after 3 days and a half, the Spirit of life, the Spirit of life from the Most High entered into them.
Yeah, this is the spirit of life. This word, this understanding. Yahushua called it living waters. And he said, if you drink this living water, you shall live forever. This is the living water. This knowledge, this understanding. The true truth of this Bible. Right? That's the living water.
It says, and they stood upon their feet, and great fear fell upon them which saw them.
Yeah, people are scared, man. And you know who's really scared? The elite, super elite. And they're not scared on a physical level, they're scared on a spiritual level.
Where it counts.
Okay? Because they know that the Most High is going to raise us up and give us a thing called spiritual power. Matter of fact, it's saying Revelation 11.
Oh yeah, they know that. They know that. And
That's why you think, I'm sorry, why you think, thanks, brother. Why you think you got so many groups trying to buck up against this thing? Why is Vocab, No Class Malone, and Faithful to the Devil so hard into coming against Israel? Because we must have the truth.
That's right.
If you got a group of people talking about they worshiping a goddamn head of lettuce, are you gonna get some Christians saying no, you're not supposed to? No. Let's debate them. Let's have a debate. We're gonna prove to you that head of lettuce is not your God.
Yeah, man.
Because we have the truth, and these guys are set up, man.
That's right. And you guys are desperate, man. 10 reasons why I'm not a Hebrew Israelite? Come on, man.
Oh, and then one thing, I went into the middle of it, and Faithful to the Devil brought out this scripture, and he said this before he read it. He said, they can't get around this one. He brought out Isaiah 49:6. And when I read it, I said, man, that shit is easy as hell. I can get all around that.
The Lord have called me from the moon.
Yeah, well, that goes into
Isaiah chapter 49, verse 6. And he said, it is a light thing.
That's the first verse. Go ahead.
And he said, it is a light thing that thou shouldest be my servant to raise up the tribes of Jacob.
That's for us. It's a light thing for us to raise up the tribe of Jacob. Go ahead.
And to restore the preserved of Israel.
And that's what the Most High is doing. Yahweh is doing by using us, his vessels on the earth.
Right.
Go ahead.
I will also give thee as a light to the Gentiles.
Now read that again. Read that again.
And he said, it is a light thing that thou shouldest be my servant to raise up the tribes of Jacob and to restore the preserved of Israel.
So this guy, this fool, faithful to the devil, all right, which he mentioned himself as faithful to God. He said it mentioned Jacob and it mentioned Israel. So now let's read on. Go ahead.
I will also give thee for a light to the Gentiles.
That's talking about the Gentiles. No, it's not talking about the Gentiles. It's talking about the Israelites that don't know that they're Israelites, man.
That's right. That's right.
And there's many scriptures that we can go to. We can go to Isaiah, the 60th chapter. That's just one. We can go to Hebrews 8:6. We can go to Romans 9. You know, we can go to the Old Testament and on the New Testament, man.
Which all of us Israelites have become Gentiles, right? We became Gentiles when when we were brought into.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, keep speaking.
We became Gentiles when we were brought into the customs of the so-called white man. All of us became Gentiles, but now we're learning that we're not Gentiles, we're Israelites. The word Gentile means foreigner. literally gentilis.
And it can apply to other nations,
Yeah.
like Edomites and other nations, but it also can apply to Israelites.
Right.
It depends upon the context of it.
Yeah. What is that? 1 Corinthians. You know you were Gentiles. Who was the apostle?
12.
Right. Who was the apostle Paul speaking to? He was speaking to Israelites living in Corinth, Greece. He said, "You know you were Gentiles." So if they were Gentiles, what were they before that? Before they became Gentiles? That's the big question. They were Israelites, man.
That's the big question.
But they became Gentiles. They became Greeks, if you will, because the Greeks took over. Starting with Alexander the Greek. Then they became Hellenized by Alexander the Greek. But they were Israelites at the first.
That's it.
See, if you knew history, you'd know that. But the Lord ain't dealing with you faithful to Satan.
Baruch 4:1. This is the book of the commandment of the Most High, and the law that endures forever. All they that keep it shall come to life.
All they that keep it, the book, shall come to life. Go ahead.
It says, but such as leave it shall die.
The ones you it's cut and dry. If you're talking about you're going to read the Quran and get the truth, ultimately you're going to die. If you're talking about following the way of the Kemetic way, you're going to die eventually.
Right.
No matter what book, you got to follow this book, and you got to follow it by the letter, man. Go ahead.
Turn thee, O Jacob,
Turn thee, O Jacob. Go ahead.
and take hold of it.
And take hold of what? The keeper negas? Huh? The book of the dead?
The Egyptian book of the dead. Yeah.
Turn thee, O Jacob, and take hold of it. Walk in the presence of the light thereof.
Walk in, I love this. Walk in the presence of the light thereof.
Walk in it. Because it's a way of life, man. You know, it's not you are Israelite on the weekends. You're Israelite 24/7. You walk in it.
Yeah,
It's a way of
because
life.
right. Because you go to the store and you pick up something, a new item. What do you do as an Israelite, as a trained? I don't like to use that word. As a school or Israelite grown in the faith, you turn around, you read the ingredients, man. When the Passover comes, there's certain things you won't pick up. You got to see if it's yeast. You got to put it back in. So you being an Israelite, you run into a woman that you think she look good, and y'all have a conversation. You as an Israelite, you're still an Israelite. Okay, you can't put the Hebrew Israelite thing in the Bible and go commit adultery. When you talking to this woman, you got to say, well, do you have a man? And if she says yeah, then you got to step away. A lot of them say they don't have a man. You know? But you got to perceive in the spirit whether she does. You know?
Walk in the presence of the light thereof, that thou mayest
Walk
be,
in the presence of the light thereof. Go ahead.
that thou mayest be illuminated.
That thou mayest be illuminated. That's why you got guys, even in GMS, that are sputtering out. All right? You got guys going back to the 90s that was going out on the highways and the byways, that they don't go out on the highways and the byways. No more. They go in the goddamn bookstores or in the damn churches, you know? How GOCC is setting up a new thing when he's going out in the street. Always setting up a new, what happened in the last, I don't know, 10 years? Huh? We've been constantly doing it. HODC talked about it. HODC is back. Well, where you go? Where you been? Where the F you been? Where the F you been?
Give not thine honor to another.
Give not thine honor to another. So now we got to get on the GOCC. What the hell you teaching that Esau can be a part of this thing, man? Huh? That 5 Edomites is going to be in the kingdom of heaven. Huh? Read that again.
Give not thine honor to another.
The honor goes to who? The children of Israel, and that it goes deeper than the children of Israel. It goes to the elect. You just can't give it to any nigga out there, man.
That's right. John the Baptist said that. He said,
When
bring
I get the
fruits.
scripture, right? Quote it, bring it out.
Yep.
This ain't for everybody, man. Just because you're an Israelite, that don't mean you're gonna make it. You're gonna make it in the long run.
That's the first step. It's a long road, you know, you gotta take before you get there. It says, give not thine honor to another,
Don't give this to another nation. This ain't for another nation.
nor
What does it say in Revelation 11? Get that right quick and come back. You know what I want. Start at 1.
This is the book of Revelation, chapter 11, verse 1. It says,
You see how this thing flows? You see how it flows? And that's why we know Bruce Lee is an Israelite. Because he said you gotta let it flow. Okay?
He said water can flow or it can crash.
Right. Be like water. And the Bible is known as water.
We're like water.
Yep. Matter of fact, give me that in John. Out of his belly. John, was it John 7:38?
Yeah, come.
So that's how we know that Bruce Lee is an Israelite. Lee John said.
John 7:38. It says, he that believeth on me, as the scripture has said, out of his belly shall flow rivers of living water.
You just gotta let it flow.
Now let it flow, man. Hey, wasn't that a song by Tony Braxton?
Yeah.
Let It Flow. It's kind of a good song. Yeah.
Revelation 11 and 1. And there was
She was an Israelite. That's why she was able to say like that way. She was an Israelite. Go ahead.
Revelation 11 and 1. And there was given me a reed like unto a rod.
You read like unto a rod. That's when you measure somebody up. You measure people up with this word here. Go ahead.
And the angel stood, it said, and the angel stood saying, rise and measure the temple of the Most High,
And he shall rule them
and the altar,
iron.
and them that worship therein.
Now that's really talking about what? That's talking about the children of Israel. It tells you in 1 Corinthians 3rd chapter, it speaks about us being a building. We are the buildings of the Most High. So the temple, you had the first temple that was built up by Solomon. That temple was destroyed by the Babylonians, which was the kings were Assyrians, not Cushites. All right. And then the third temple, Yahweh said, you couldn't destroy this temple, I should rebuild it back in 3 days, and said it was talking about him. It was talking about him, but it was talking about the whole nation. Because the new temple that's going to be built is us.
It says, but the court which is without the temple, leave out and measure it not.
Why? Don't teach them. Go ahead.
For it is given unto the Gentiles.
That's for the Gentiles. That's for the Gentiles.
How about that, faithful to Satan?
Yeah, get around that.
Get around that.
And we won't get around that scripture brought out in Isaiah 49 and 6. We'll get around that.
And that's why 2/3 of our people are going to be destroyed.
And she got a head of blonde
Blonde
hair.
hair, yeah.
Show you how backwards I am.
And that's why the Lord going to kill 2/3
She
of
got
his
a
people.
full head of blonde hair. Talk about John Rastafari. And there's no J in the Hebrew. And J
And you notice they're doing that to be disrespectful. But it's okay. Very soon.
But we're not mad.
Yeah, we're not mad, but very soon, you niggas are going to learn respect, man. Very soon, you're going to learn respect. All right?
You're going to learn some respect.
You're going to learn some respect.
You're going to learn some respect.
See, they're delighting being disrespectful. Very soon, when the Lord gives us that power, we gonna get our respect.
Those are the ones that's not going to make it. I guarantee you they're going to take that
They ain't gonna
shit.
make it.
They're going to vote him in office. They're going to take that shit and they're going to be destroyed.
And another thing too, it was a bunch of so-called white people standing there. Them fucking dumb fools, they wouldn't have said nothing. They wouldn't have said
They
jack
wouldn't have said a
shit.
damn thing.
They wouldn't have said a damn thing. That's why we hate you niggas, man. That's why we hate you niggas, man. And we want to see you destroyed. Hey, the prophet Jeremiah, he wanted